This movie's just too damn crowded. I have 3 columns of notes here, and when I finished them, I was like, there's stuff I still didn't address. But let's just do this. Let's just break down this movie. It's all your fault, Matthew Vaughn, and I'm going to explain that. But anyway, all right, so hello and welcome to my spoiler review of Kingsman 2, The Golden Circle. I'm particularly annoyed, by the way, because I just rewatched the first film again last night, and while I did love the sequel, it's not as good as the first film, and it totally could have been. All right, so Kingsman The Golden Circle, the sequel, is a 2.5-hour adrenaline rush, and it has all the charm and style of the first film. But it's missing the heart, and yes, I do mean Harry Hart. And not just that it needs more Colin Firth, and by the way, some of you have asked me this, there's no action scene here on par with the church scene from the first film. And I don't even know if Matthew Vaughn and Jane Goldman, the 2 strong creative forces behind this whole franchise, realized that church scene was so special, not just because for the standout action, which Colin Firth was doing. It never gets old watching Colin Firth do action sequences. I don't even, as I said in my non-spoiler review, I don't care that his head's been put on someone else's body. I love it. But the church scene was really special because of all the different levels that it operated on, both narratively, like there's a lot of regular people who have become, these crazed murderers in the church, but there's also a killing machine in there, and that's unfair. That was amazing. But also there was a lot of social commentary going on with that scene. It just operated on a lot of different levels, and that doesn't happen here. In fact, that's a great way to describe the problem with this movie. It only operates on one level, which is awesome fun, which is a good level to pick if you're just going to pick one, but I missed the other levels that were given to me in the other movie. Then also with Harry Hart, this movie has the Harry Hart problem for the first one, and that's that Matthew Vaughn once again and Jane Goldman once again kill off a character, actually 2 characters, no 3 characters, sorry Roxy fans, that they're totally going to regret doing. How do you not learn your lesson from the first film? I guess to some degree, maybe they killed them in ways that there's no question that they couldn't be brought back, but that only made it all the more frustrating because it's like you're killing fan favorites, 2 remain, and 2 from the first film and 1, new one, but you're doing so in a way that they're like, yeah, we're not bringing this character back, and you're like, oh, but I want them back. It was very, very frustrating. But Roxy has so little screen time here, she doesn't even get a section. I thought it was cute that she was feeding Eggsy, although I thought that wasn't a good use of her spy time, feeding him stuff at his dinner with Princess Tilde's parents, but I don't know, even from the first film, that was a little bit of a problem, that Roxy was supposed to be the one who won the position, and she never was really given anything of note to do. She still kind of seemed like she was in the intern spot. All right, so anyway, Matthew Vaughn has revealed that his first cut of this movie, this sequel, was 3 hours and 40 minutes, and the missing hour is definitely missing from the finished product. I don't know what I would have done if I was Fox, quite frankly. Would I release a 2-parter? Maybe I would release a 3-hour and 40-minute movie. I don't know what was cut. I don't know of the quality of it. I don't know if it fixes these problems. But I sure would like to see it, and Matthew Vaughn has said that perhaps that he would release an extended cut, and I highly encourage him to do so. But I don't understand how he can overshoot his running time by so much, particularly because one script page equals about a minute of film. So if he had a 300 and, whatever amount of minutes that is script, I'd be like, you're obviously running over here, Matthew. He said he usually cuts a lot of stuff out, but that's a lot of stuff to potentially cut out. Why even shoot so much stuff? It makes no sense. And also, I have to say that in screenwriting, it's a common practice not to write out your action sequences. You just go, and then they fight. But if you have such an action-heavy movie, maybe you should write out your action sequences, especially after this. This should be a giant warning, a cautionary tale to any action movie going forward. And it just seems like Matthew Vaughn put Fox and this franchise in a difficult and unnecessary position, which quite frankly seems unprofessional to me. I'm just surprised that someone with Matthew Vaughn's experience would find himself having to cut an hour of the film and having a lesser product as a result. How does that happen? All right, so Now, as I said in my non-spoiler review, I liked the movie. I know it doesn't seem like it. But again, I'm a super fan of the first movie. I just watched it last night, and I'm frustrated, super frustrated, at the obvious problems that this sequel has and doesn't need to have. All right, so number one, why on earth would you kill off Pedro Pascal? Why would you do it? Your coolest new character. You're like, remember how I killed Harry Hart? I'm doing it again. I just loved Pedro Pascal. His action scenes, I could watch him skip rope all day. Like, another great character was created here. And I thought he out-Americana'd Channing Tatum and Jeff Bridges. I really loved him throughout the movie, but when he was riding the silver pony with his, America helmet, fighter pilot helmet, I was just like, this is an amazing character. I just loved it. And I didn't like... And as someone who liked the character so much, I was frustrated with the way the movie ended up treating the character. And allow me to explain. Now, I said that this was a little bit too much of a gray zone for the moral dilemma that the movie presents this time around. And that was, of course, the reveal that Poppy, Julianne Moore's character, had poisoned all of her drugs. She's the biggest drug supplier in the world. And she was holding the world ransom, saying, I will not give you the antidote unless you make drugs legal so I can be a legit businesswoman. I liked that. That was a good idea. And I love the twist that the President of the United States said, well, I'm just going to let all the drug users die. I just won the war on drugs. Hello, fantastic. I thought that was really clever. But then you started to get into a gray zone where Agent Whiskey, it was revealed that his wife and unborn child were killed due to they were caught in the crossfire of some drug-related violence. So he also wanted to get rid of all the drug users. And so he ended up not being a double agent. He wasn't working for Poppy, but he was working against saving everyone. And I could understand where he was coming from. Sure, he crossed a line. Sure, it was the wrong thing to do. And it seemed like maybe, I don't know if he was trying to kill Eggsy and Harry Hart. I wasn't ever totally sure about that. I think maybe he was just trying to stop them. So I didn't like that they killed him. I was like, the man's hurting. He has a personal issue at hand here. Can't we just take him out and imprison him and, talk to him? Leave and also save him for another movie. And they not only killed him, but then they put him in the food processor. Totally called it. By the way, those are human burgers. But I was surprised that the human burgers were just a sidebar in the movie. How do you have people turned into hamburgers and not really make it a big part of the film? I thought it was overkill for Poppy. I was like, she's already a drug lord. Why she gotta make human burgers too? I don't really see how this fits in. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe it was just her thing. But she never had anyone really come visit her. So she had all these quirks. I don't know. I guess it was to prove loyalty, but it was like, nobody really knows you're making human burgers, Poppy. I don't know. So, all right. I also wondered who had a robotics degree who was developing all these robots at her villain hideout. I never understood that. All right, I don't think they wanted you to or cared. The movie didn't care. But then, we're still on Agent Whiskey. I thought that they had Agent Whiskey, by the way, continuously vote against ginger ale to become a statesman to imply that he was sexist, so to help the audience not feel so bad when he was killed. And I just felt that was a cheap and obvious shot at Agent Whiskey. I was like, I don't think Agent Whiskey would have voted against her. And I think you just, again, did that so that I wouldn't feel bad when you killed him. But guess what? I still feel bad that you killed him. And now I also feel bad that you had him vote against ginger ale every time that she was up for a statesman, because I don't think he would have done that. So it was a real problem. And I'm surprised that when they were making the movie, this didn't occur to anyone. They were like, man, Pedro Pascal is knocking it out of the park. Maybe we shouldn't kill him. All right, so number 2, they also killed Merlin. I was really upset about that. And they had him talking to ginger ale, don't you wish you could go into the field? And it's so you can die? That was really ridiculous. And then also I didn't like the fact that it was Eggsy's fault being so careless. When they were in the field and they knew there were mines and they were sweeping for mines, how do you step on a mine? Especially because, again, I was reminded when I rewatched it last night in the first movie, Eggsy's really supposed to know what he's doing. So I don't understand how he can make such a stupid mistake like that. And then for it to caught, he also made the mistake about the arm in the car. I was like, Eggsy, you're getting, the Charlie's arm leading everybody to the Kingsman's hideout. I was like, Eggsy, you're getting everybody killed. It's totally your fault. He went from being top of the class to being class goof with serious consequences, and no one ever called him on it, which I also found frustrating. But of all the gadgets that the Kingsman and the Statesman have, how do they not, they can survive a gunshot to the head. how can they not keep a mine from exploding? I was like, well, this again seems cheap, and this time emotionally cheap. And the way Merlin went out singing, I believe it was John Denver, I was kind of angry at the movie for putting me through that, to be perfectly honest with you. And look, I understand. I'm sure some of you right now are like, characters need to die, Grace. We want the stakes to be real. I mean, some of us wanted Harry Hart to stay dead. Those people are crazy. But I know that the first movie in particular made a really strong point of saying this ain't a James Bond movie, this ain't that type of movie, people die. But hey, then earn it if they're gonna die. Don't take cheap shots. I liked the Poppy death. I thought her death was good, that Eggsy intentionally overdosed her. It was a nice subtle moment reminding us of Eggsy's past, which, he's always seemed very clean cut to me. They never really sold me on that past, to be honest with you. But I think it was a stinging, effectively stinging, I liked it, reminder of that. It was good. I liked that. Now, as for coming back from the dead, I totally bought how they brought Harry back from the dead, largely because I wanted to buy it. I was like, I don't care. They could have just said, because the audience wanted him to come back. And I would have been like, that's true. Let's get on with it. All right, check. But I think that it was a mistake to have him never fully come back into top shape, both mentally or physically, at least in this movie. I hope it's over. I hope if they get to make a third film, and I'm so nervous about it, but I hope if they get to make a third film, he's back on top, because that's what everybody wants to see. Because again, after rewatching the first film, a large part of what makes Kingsman, I think, such a unique and satisfying action film, is the idea of seeing someone like Colin Firth decked out in a gorgeous suit, just a gentleman's gentleman, having these amazing, top-notch, better than most action sequences. And that element was really missing from this movie. Also missing from the movie was the father-son dynamic between Harry Hart and Eggsy. Instead, they swapped it out for another emotional core, and that was the romance between Eggsy and Princess Tilde, which I have to admit, I did enjoy quite a bit, actually. I thought it was sweet to see a male fantasy based on marrying a princess, because it's usually the reverse, about a woman wanting to marry a prince. So I thought that was nice. And I thought that the Eggsy and Tilde dynamic was really great. And I thought it had a realness to it as well. So I liked that. I liked it a lot. But you know what? Fathers give sons advice about romance all the time. And just like Harry Hart helped Eggsy become a gentleman in the first film, I think it would have been nice to see him at least give some guidance with the romance here. That would have been really nice. But again, he was too out of it to do that, and so they lost that element. Now, speaking of Princess Tilde, I felt that maybe their serious relationship here, they even got married, was meant to take the edge off the end of the first film. And it does. I don't know if they needed to do that. I think that it makes this movie too crowded. But then, and also, especially because they did it again by going too far with the Poppy Delevingne scene, who, by the way, is Cara Delevingne's sister. But anyway, I enjoy a steamy sex scene as much as any of you. I saw a number of people in my non-spoiler review saying, like, don't be such a prude, Grace. Typical reaction to when I comment about stuff like this. But you haven't seen the scene, all right? Now, again, steamy sex scenes, they're great. I love Game of Thrones. I've never had a complaint about Game of Thrones, for instance. But I don't need to follow Eggsy's fingers in close-up down Poppy Delevingne's stomach, down to her crotch, into her underwear, and inside her. That movie actually does that. It's just too vulgar and too juvenile. You could practically hear Matthew Vaughn and Jane Goldman giggling from when they wrote it. I did not like it. Now, what did I absolutely love about the film? Like, I have no problems with? Well, obviously, Elton John. What a cameo. Perhaps one of the best, if not the best celebrity cameos of all time. I put that up there with Daniel Craig in The Force Awakens. And Daniel Craig only gets points off because very few people know it's Daniel Craig. He's the stormtrooper that Daisy Ridley uses her mind powers on. It's fabulous. If you know it's him, and so you can go back and watch that scene, you can hear Daniel Craig's speech pattern. But this was so good. And he was in so much of the movie. I had not expected that. I loved all of his scenes. I loved it when he was yelling at that scientist minion in the back of Poppy's demonstration. I thought that was great. I also love, by the way, that Elton John's not a fabulous actor, but he's so game. So I just thought, like you were like, you're not great, but I love your enthusiasm, Elton. This is really making this fabulous. I loved him running around in his feather costume at the end of the movie. His kick with the head replacement, that was fabulous. I loved how he saved Harry Hart from Poppy's robot dog. That was brilliant. Elton John, friend. That was great. And I loved it when Poppy said, kill Elton John. It was fabulous. And I also loved his line to Harry Hart about a backstage pass if Harry Hart saves the world. That was a very clever callback to the end of the last movie. That I thought was more in line with what Kingsman is supposed to be. That was great. Although, because Harry was a little out of it, I don't think Colin Firth kept up his end of that exchange. But Elton John more than sold it. It was great. I loved his little air kiss to Colin Firth. It was great. Then as for Julianne Moore's Poppy, I loved what she did here. She was a very strong female villain, which is unusual to see. Very type A, I liked that. And I also thought she was delightfully goofy. Her naming Charlie's new Armageddon, I thought that was great, and it came out of nowhere. But she has so little screen time that you really only get to know her in broad strokes. Whereas with Valentine, I totally got who he was as a character. I understood his motivations. He just seemed fully formed as a character, whereas Poppy is more of a caricature. Then Halle Berry's Ginger Ale. What a character. I was so glad that at the end of the movie she achieved agent status. And one of the main reasons I want a third film, not only because I love this franchise, is that I need to see her horn-rimmed tech nerd in the field. I think it could be as fun as seeing Colin Firth in the field. Now, I know Halle Berry's made other action movies, but I think Halle Berry really became this character, and I think that she would really sell these action sequences in a unique way that would make them stand out. I really want to see it happen. So, again, I left the theater wanting a third film, but if you rewatch Kingsman 1, and I highly recommend that you do, you can see that Kingsman 2 is almost a placeholder in some ways, just to keep the franchise going, but they need to realize where it does not, stand on par with the first one and fix these mistakes. You would think the exact same creative team would know what they were doing, but, I think that some things have escaped them. So I hope that they really pay attention to the criticisms and they don't write it off as, I've seen Matthew Vaughn already criticizing the advertising for this movie. I hope he takes the criticism to heart because it comes with love, as someone who loves the idea of the Kingsman. And I wish they hadn't shot Harry Hart in the head. That is a mistake that continues to haunt this franchise and haunt the sequel, because if they hadn't, and if they had just left Princess Tilde as a one-night stand, as some of you have said it's a commentary on Bond movies, fine, let it be a commentary on Bond movies. And it goes a little bit too far because this, that's what this movie's supposed to do, just like it actually outright kills people, right? Fine. Then they could have hit the ground running with the sequel. It's just a team-up between the Kingsman and the Statesman, with Harry and Eggsy's father-son relationship progressing. There was just too much other stuff. They had too much on their plate. All right, so what did you think of Kingsman The Golden Circle? This is the spoiler review, so write anything you want down below. I look forward to continuing the conversation, and you can check out some more videos right now.